confirm with my phone. Yay! Hi, guys! E aí, pessoal, aqui é o Diego, novamente. Depois da confusãozinha com o horário hoje, a gente acabou voltando ao ar. E agora sim, estamos aqui com a Delaina. Hi, Delaina. Thank you so much for being here to sharing with us today how to make an email marketing campaign and how to use SendGrid products. So I'm not going to take much of our time, and you can already begin your presentation. Thank you so much, and now it's with you.
Okay, fantastic. Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, so today we're just going to cover email strategies to achieve 40x ROI. You know, just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been with SendGrid for about 3 years now. I've been doing community development and ecosystems, working with startups like you for over a decade. I'm extremely excited to be here, and thank you again so much, Diego, for all of your hard work in coordinating all of this. We're really excited to share all of this with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so what we'll cover today are basically 5 main points. 1, authentically growing your email list. And then also really amazing strategies to help you with your customer segmentation, which is really super important, particularly as you continue to grow your business. And then also how to build a strong call to action, which is basically at the heart of all of your email marketing on your email set. And then also A/B testing and why this is so critical for your success. And then we'll close out today with a couple of different benchmarks and case studies. So depending on what your business is, e-commerce or retail or other kinds of things, you'll get a pretty good idea of where your numbers should be at from a healthy sending perspective. All right, so we'll just dive right in. So just a little bit about SendGrid. Where we pretty much send 75% of the world's email. Here's a few of our current clients and brands. You'll see some pretty familiar names: Airbnb, eBay, Yelp, Flipkart, Pandora, and Spotify. And so a little bit more also about our founders. So Tim, Isaac, and Jose. These are all of the accelerators, much like the one that you're going through, and VCs that you deal with. This is kind of where we got our start as part of Techstars, 500 startups, and then some of our investors on the right-hand side, Softtech and Bessemer. They've been in our corner since day one, and so we share that same startup journey. And then just a little bit about our products. So we like to think of ourselves as email infrastructure and email marketing. So we initially started the company by developers for developers sending transactional email. And we figured out in short order that, you know, developers aren't the only ones that need to send email. Marketers need to send it too. And so basically, we have the SendGrid email platform, which is easy to integrate, provides analytics and reporting, easy to use interfaces, flexible APIs. So no matter where you are in your journey, there's a lot going on in terms of the product itself. And this is our Accelerate program. So because we were a startup and we've shared that same startup journey, it was very easy to talk to our founders about having a program just for startups to help you build your business and strengthen your runway without getting into your burn rate. And so the Accelerate program, which if you guys are interested, those are the kinds of things where we provide free product credit, as well as mentoring and networking to help you in your business. And as always, there's no obligation. So if at any point you're like, look, like SendGrid's just not for me, I'm going to go do something else. Even our largest customers are on a month-to-month basis. There's no contractual stuff going on. So we really want, you know, to take this time and invest this time into your business and the kinds of objectives that you have. And so here's some of our partners. Techstars, Global Accelerator Network, 500 Startups, Startup Bootcamp. You'll see a lot of really familiar names, or if they're not familiar to you, that's okay. We're more than happy to, share any additional information, or if you have any questions about who we partner with in the startup ecosystem. And these are just some of the few big name brands. We also partner with, every type of VC, every type of accelerator, really trying to cultivate the startup ecosystem from the ground up. And so one of the first things we'll talk about is why email can generate 40x ROI. The average return on investment for every $1 spent on email is $38 to $40. And when you think about how and why that is, you have to think about the factors like who opens your email, what links people click, where recipients are located, what devices, are they on their phone, are they on their desktop? These are all different kinds of considerations. Also the browser they use. Are you optimizing, for example, in the enterprise, they use Microsoft products. And so if you are an enterprise-focused startup, you'll want to optimize for Microsoft products because on the back end of that, enterprise systems largely run on those products. Also, the email client they use. We've found that every email client, whether it's Outlook, Gmail, Safari, all of these, sorry, not Safari, but like Outlook, Gmail, Hotmail, Bing, all these other different kinds of email clients, they all make your email look a little bit different. And so one of the most amazing things about email is that it gives you that one-to-one conversation. And so you can't really talk about email without authentically growing your email list and what that's all about. There's going to be a lot of people who will tell you that buying lists or brokering lists is an okay or a tactic that you can use. And while that can be something that some people use, it doesn't really give you the kinds of return on investment that you're looking for. And at the end of the day, you'll spend more money. And so here's a few tips and tricks on how to authentically grow your email list. So don't bury your sign-up form, make it front and center. Don't ask for a lot. An email address is all you need. It really is, when you think about it, at the core of your digital identity. Like you log into all of your social media platforms with your email address. You can also provide incentives or discounts like, hey, sign up now for our newsletter for a 15% off discount. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. The next one is optimizing your opt-in pages. So making sure that you can provide valuable content to them, that you've guarded the content in a way that makes it so that if they find it valuable, and it's a way of that your users can self-qualify as to whether or not they actually want to hear from you. And then giving them multiple opportunities to sign up. So on average, from our research has shown that it takes 6 to 8 touch points before somebody converts. So you have 6 to 8 chances to talk with them before they convert into an actual sale. And so by providing multiple touch points in different and engaging ways, you can essentially better your chances at reaching them. It also is, one of the things we recommend are pop-ups. We do recommend using them very, in a way that is not disruptive to your user flow. And also landing pages that start with customer segmentation right off the bat. So making sure that at the very top of what it is that you're trying to do, you get that list segmentation and those landing pages that speak specifically to them. And also rewarding current subscribers with discounts and referrals. Everybody loves a good discount, but it's also you're giving them value in exchange for value. Also making sure that you can double opt-in. So this is very important. You want to make sure that the people who are signing up for your product are actually who they say they are. And through the email verification process, this is basically just confirming that you are who you say you are. You actually do want to hear from us, and that it's very personalized to them, and there's a very clear call to action with what it is that they're trying to do and how it is they're trying to do it. And so and also having social buttons where they can share it with all of their friends. And then also one other thing that you can do is to create a seller welcome email. And so what this means is that if you look at Flipboard and all of these other different socials, it's very visual. They get a really good idea of what it is you're trying to do and how it is you're trying to do it. And then also not just the visual aspect, but the calls to action are very clear. And so this is a great example of a welcome series. It's very visual. We usually do between 3 and 5 email in any given welcome series. And this is really important because users work really well off of repetition. And also, one of your biggest strategies that you can think about is developing valuable content. So writing addictive subject lines. Subject lines account for 60% of your open rate. So definitely take them seriously. And then grabbing attention with images and knowing your customer.
Dalila,
yeah?
I think your battery is going to run low.
Yeah, and I'm plugging it in right now. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we're all good. There we go. Knowing your customer. What do they like? What speaks to them? And sometimes what you can do, this is just a small bullet point in today's in today's presentation, but I will say this, that the closer you are with your customer, do not be afraid to ask them questions. Do not be afraid to talk to them in real terms. Do not be afraid to go out and reach out to your highest engaged users and say, you're our highest engaged user. We want to get to know all about you. And we're excited to meet you. And we're excited that you think we're so amazing. And if you're still building your lists, and in some cases, startups are early enough where they're still building their list. It's okay to go out there to who you think your users should be and going and asking those same questions and just providing a consistent user experience. This is a topic that literally I could go on all day. So we're going to move on. But, this is something that, as a marketer, I'm really passionate about because I really feel like it makes a difference, not just from your email, but also helps you with your product and helps you extend your platform. So one of the other best practices, creating an email preference center. So this is really, really important. And it's important because basically you're empowering your users to take control of how they want to hear from you and what they want to talk about. It gives you invaluable data because they can opt into all of the amazing things that you have to say in a way that, they want to hear it. And so this is really important because it gives you just as much data. It lets you know what they're interested in. It also, can help you segment through because they're signing up for it. So they're opting into that segment, which that kind of engagement is exactly what you want to see and what you want to do. In terms of email today, what is the likelihood that email infrastructure set up incorrectly will experience delivery issues? So we should just break down that question a little bit. Email infrastructure being how you have it set up on the back end, and then delivery issues. So this is an industry kind of inside baseball term. It basically means your ability to get your email into the recipient's inbox. So when we think about this, we really want to think about what is the likelihood of getting, based on just your email tech stack, the likelihood if it's set up incorrectly, it won't get into the inbox. And from our research, that should be 92%. My screen is a little bit wonky today, but it's 92%. And 92% of the time we found there's spam reports and bounces where the email just gets returned. And then also, non-engagement. So, we're going to talk a little bit about delivery basics here, but basically those inbox service providers, they don't just look at spam reports anymore. They also look at bounce rates. And they also look at, are you sending repeatedly to bounced email addresses? And then are people actually engaging with your content? Are they actually looking at it and thinking about it in ways that make sense for them? And then your reputation score. is your sender score. So what this is basically it's how your how the internet service providers see you as a sender. And then your IP address options. So basically, your IP address can either be dedicated or shared. And if you have a dedicated IP address, we always recommend this as a best practice.
I think you really need to put your power cable.
Yeah, here we go. Sorry, guys. How's that? Okay, perfect. It keeps the thing keeps falling off, so here we go. All right, so and then a shared IP. So basically the difference between dedicated and shared is that you share it with other people who may not be great senders. So the reason why we list dedicated IPs as a best practice is because we're very interested in getting your email into the inbox, and it basically says you are who you say you are, and you can take full control of your email profile. And so this is kind of.
Can I ask a question so I can participate a little bit too?
Yeah.
What do you say about bouncing emails, and how can we prevent that from happening? And what about double opt-in? Does it help us to diminish this bounce rate? What do you say about it?
Yeah, so to prevent bounced emails, there's a few different things that you need to look at. So the first thing you need to look at with bounced emails is where you got that email address from. If you got it from like someone else who recommended it for you, if you like got the list from a third party, any of those kinds of things, those things are typically going to have a higher bounce rate. Sometimes if you have an email capture, it can simply be like, you know, we mistype things all the time. And so, and I have, like, for example, my name, Delena Malashevsky, like, my last name is Polish. And I got to tell you, like, I've misspelled that thing a few times. And sometimes it can just be user error, right? And there's no way to really know. And so one of the things is the double opt-in will definitely help you in that respect. It's your #1 line of defense. Your #2 line of defense is if you have a way to cross-check it. So if you have an app where they're registering or logging in of some kind, you can basically cross-reference their login with being able to sign up or register or subscribe to different update lists. So sometimes what people do.
That's a cool tip.
Yeah. And then also, if you have things like single sign-on, which not a lot of people have considered it as a tactic, but it is possible. So single sign-on allows people to use their Facebook or Gmail account, or like basically, log in with Google Mail, and it kind of handles that kind of stuff for you. So even within your product, there's a lot of opportunities to be able to validate who they actually are.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so this is kind of what we see from our end. So 260 requests, 225 delivered, and it's like, oh, well, what is that all about? Well, we actually had 21,000 bounces of emails that just weren't great, and then then you actually start getting into open rates, and you actually start getting into a lot of other issues that are going on. So 9,000 were blocked. 4,000 were blocked the first time. It tried to resend, and another 9K were blocked again. And so this is actually, at the end of the day, when you're looking at even just sending out of 300,000 email, it can really affect your reputation score. 62% as a reputation score is pretty bad. You always want to be at least 80 or above. And these are the kinds of things that they're concerned about. So repeat spam reports, blocks, repeat bounces, repeat unsubscribes. And really what I want you guys to take away from this is that they really reward you for paying attention to these lists, to not sending to the same list over and over and over again, even when you have the data and the results. Because what it says to them is that you're not paying attention, and that you will continuously send, whether they want your email or not. And so the inbox service providers will look at this and be like, oh, they're just not paying attention at all. And so we'll talk a little bit about better customer segmentation to actually start to address this issue. And so at the heart of customer segmentation, to prevent a lot of this, repeat bounces, repeat spam reports, we often call it pruning and grooming. And what that means is it's just like in your garden when you're out there and you're looking at your trees or your plants and you look at all the dead leaves and you want to trim them out of there because it's not healthy for the plant. Just like bad email addresses are not healthy for your email sends, and they actually cause you a lot of headaches. So you definitely want to get ahead of that through customer segmentation. Treating your users the same does more damage than good. And just as a best practice, that's really how you should think of it. And to better segment your customers, you'll want to look at their activity. So what are they logging in? Are they buying? Where are they spending their time? And there's a host of free services and tools that can help you out with that. And then overall engagement. Who is opening what and why? And you always want to benchmark it against your highest engaged users. So when you're really thinking of your users, really view them in terms of their engagement, use them in terms of their demographics, and use their engagement to get to know more about them. And then also email types. So when we say transactional email, what we're actually talking about are receipts, email verifications, notifications, things like that, versus marketing email. And when you think about that, really tailor your message to be as specific as you can be, and then making it short, sweet, and concise so that you get the exact message across based on the tools available to you. And so what we found is hyper-segmenting a customer through in-app activity and targeted email campaigns contributes to not just your email, but your customer's well-being. So this is a great example from one of our community developer, one of my colleagues. They were searching for coffee near New York, and then they get an email that basically says, oh, you're a coffee addict, then this challenge is for you. So they took user behavior and they tied it to very targeted email campaigns that give them value, that give them a discount for taking action right now. And even more than that, they got an additional email that gave them a list of, the 17 best iced coffee drinks in New York. So what this is telling your users is that we know you were searching for coffee. We know where you're at. We know where you're physically located. We have all of this data, and we're using it to give you value. We're taking that value investment and giving it back to you in a way that gives you information that you're interested about. And you'll see the subject lines and the timing. And so that this is very important. So when you look at engagement, you need to look at it as a story arc, right? So the original search was on July 18th. She received an email the same day. And then the next day, she also received an email following up with more information for continued engagement. This kind of story arc, this kind of magic in engagement, there's a science to it. And it just comes down to being in the right place at the right time and thinking about your user journey. And then also your demographics. So when we talked earlier about how to use engagement and how to use demographics, these are all very important because you gather every day with your apps and every day with your products, you gather so much customer information that you can actually make it actionable and you can actually make it speak to your bottom line by personalization in the subject line, recommendations based on the use of products, any kind of location-based data, any of these kinds of points of engagement that you can bring to the table to help your users understand and put your product into context. And here's the subject line and the different types of email. So I just want to go back really quickly. The subject lines and then the location and then the recommendation of the use of products, the personalized recommendations. So here are some very specific examples of exactly what we were talking about and making it as personal as you can. And then in terms of the types of email, so these are kinds of, this is directly from our client, Fitbit, and it's very personal to the user. It provides specific data for them, it says, look, we, out of the data that you've provided us, we want to provide you value back. And here are the things that we think you'll find valuable. And I always encourage startups to test this out, to A/B test what you think, even if the numbers are good, even if you're getting amazing engagement, you really want to think about, okay, well, what if we changed it up? What if instead of green, we made them orange? What if instead of this icon, we use that icon? So even when the numbers look good, testing and experimentation, you still need to have that mindset, and you still need to go back to really understanding your users on a deeper level. And so this just dovetails right into how we can build a strong call to action. So if you look at these previous emails with the weekly stats and the newsletters and stuff like that, you'll notice that, again, they're very visual. And so when we think about a call to action, one of our first aspects of it is great imagery. Choosing images that feel good and that are on a positive, upbeat level. Just as a marketer, I can tell you, having done this and done a lot of the research into it, faces actually perform really well. They perform better than anything else. And if you have any video or dynamic content, that will perform 6 to 8 times better than just static content like a photo.
Wow, that's really important. So videos are performing much better.
Yeah, 6 to 8 times better. And in fact, wow, on the Facebook platform and other social media platforms, you'll also want to think about posting native content, for example. Like if you upload a video versus just putting in a link or whatever, or referencing a link, there's a lot of different ways that you can use that kind of content, not just in email, but to cascade it across all of your channels.
A question? I've seen a lot of emails that it's an image with the play button, but it's an image. And what do you say about that? It's better to have the image with the play button that will redirect to the video, or the video itself on the email?
Well, so a lot of the time what happens is, because video are so heavy and intense on, like, they're like 30 kilobytes, like 3 megabytes worth of stuff, it'll get stuck in firewall. So they do that to make it look like it's dynamic content. And even the appearance of dynamic content is still really effective. So you can still, screenshot that and use it as your image, and then take them directly to the video. My recommendation on those things is to always try to send them to your website whenever possible, instead of sending them to YouTube. So if you do that, if you do that, my recommendation is to embed that video onto your website and have that image take them directly to your website instead of just the platform itself.
And Daliana, what do you say about GIFs and cinemagraphs?
So GIFs are pretty effective. The problem is that if you're sending to a lot of enterprise clients, or like big businesses and stuff like that, and you'll know that they're you'll know that it's a company, because it'll have a company email, like at walmart.com or something like that. They get stuck in firewalls. But what you can do is you can white label. You can do a lot of other different tips and tricks that will help you, like white labeling, and you can condense the file. You just want to make sure that, for example, even the name, if you're going to insert a GIF, or if you're going to insert anything risky like that, you just make sure the name of the file isn't like 1234.gif, If you think about it. Yeah, because if you think about it, the inbox service provider is like, what is 1234.gif? Like, what is going on? Like, this is completely sketchy. So you just want to do the best you can from, and then also, there are great ways to kind of light up the email, but you want to make sure that the call to action is really front and center. So you'll see, like on this, for example, see more, purchase now, and calls to action with great imagery. It's a great way to A/B test. And we'll talk about A/B test in just a minute, but just kind of wanted to bring that up. So making it bold and prominent, strategic placement to draw the eye of the reader. I can tell you from a marketing perspective, you always want to have it above the fold. And that's just kind of an industry term that means like before they scroll down, making it so that they don't have to scroll down, making it so that even if they're on their phone, they don't have to do any additional work, because the more work you make the users do, the more friction it puts into the process. Also, don't clutter the space, clear the lane, and hold the space. So when you think of these things, really think to yourself, like, are we clearing the lane and holding the space for this call to action to make it as front and center as we can? And designing your email around your CTA. So right down to the content, right down to the call to action, right down to the subject line. All of these things should kind of come together in a very easy, straightforward story that the user can really understand. Like, you're not a spam bot. You're trying to give me something that I want. And so from the content perspective, you want to make sure that the reader knows what they're looking at, and it's very clear on what they need to do. If you fill it full of whole documentation, they'll look at it and be like, I have no idea what's going on. And on average, you know, with email, you're only going to have, you know, like 14 to 20 seconds. Once they open up the email, you're only going to have a very small, minimal amount of time before they lose interest, or maybe, you know, maybe they're walking on the subway and now they've just lost Wi-Fi. They're just in a dynamic environment, and your users every day are in a dynamic environment. So you want to make sure to create a sense of urgency, like, hey, you need to do this right now. Add more information if it speaks to your call to action, and connect the link directly to a specific destination, which we talked a little bit about earlier, about sending them to your website so that you can capture that traffic. Okay, and then, all right, so text link versus the button. So these are the kinds of design elements that you should be thinking about. You should really think about at all times making it responsive, because your users are going to be on the go. They're not always going to be in front of their desk. I mean, unless it is that you see that 90% of your users open it up on desktop. But I can tell you right now, and you guys will see the numbers a little bit later as well, just from our case studies, that more and more users are on the go, and they need to be able to look at their phone, and they need to be able to see that email within a good context. And so you want to focus on making it as responsive as possible. Using colors, using design elements. This is another thing that I'm extremely passionate about. Design is something that, if you guys, you know, we could spend a whole day on that, but, you know, really using colors to draw attention, being consistent. So there's three main points to design: insistence, persistence, and consistence. So
Can you repeat, please?
Sure, yeah. So be insistent, meaning like insist on what they need to do. And then persistence, meaning come back and keep coming back and keep persisting and keep, you know, keep going after them. And then also consistence. So being very consistent with how, you know, if you use blue over here, use blue over there. If you have an email that is all in blue, have the landing page that it goes to all in blue. And just be as consistent as you can be with making repeated design choices that all kind of line up together, and so that it tells a story. And part of this whole presentation is just helping you to be a better storyteller. And then also varying your CTA. So buy now, get started, learn more, free trial. You'll notice when it says free trial, no credit card needed. If there is no credit card needed, you want to make sure that you know, you add that in there. You know, and when it says click here to register, take our survey, all of these other different things, or get started here, 30-day trial, you want to give them as much information as you can while being as concise as possible. So, and this is also another area where you can A/B test pretty seriously. There's a whole body of work on calls to action, but the best practices and what you should really be taking away from all of this is that, you know, don't be afraid to change up your call to action. Don't be afraid to change up your design. Just make sure that, you know, you're building in a responsive way, and that you're constantly looking at these options as opportunities to have deeper conversations with your users and to learn more about them. All right, so A/B testing. We've talked about it throughout the presentation today, but one of the basics, it helps you determine what your audience behavior, what resonates with them, how to articulate your messaging, how to articulate, how to reach them in a way that provides value to them and puts them front and center. And so there's, throughout the presentation, we've talked about three main things about content design, but also timing. So when you think about A/B testing, these are like some of the biggest buckets that you should be thinking about. How to A/B test your content. From name addresses, for example, we found that people are 70 to 80% more likely to open up an email if it's from a female name.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. Yeah, right? I know. That's not in our script, but like it's one of those things that it's the way it is. It's weird. And then subject lines account for 60% of your open rate. So get in there and test hard and be confident, and even if the test comes back and you're like, oh man, our open rate dropped, you still learned something, and you still you still gathered all of that data. And then obviously with the design, font colors, which we talked about, formatting, imagery, using plain text. If you're trying to reach a very technical audience, sometimes they don't want the marketing fluff. They just want it, just tell it to me straight. And then one of the biggest things, beyond just the content and design is the timing. So you really want to think about your products in the user journey life cycle. Are they, at 8 a.m., are they getting on the subway? And are they looking at their phone, checking their email? In the case of VCs, for example, if you're going to pitch a VC, we found that through, I was having this amazing discussion with a founder, and he was like, yeah, I pitched 250 VCs, and I figured out that Sunday night is when they check all their email, and that's the best time to send it to them.
Sunday night. I'll take the note.
So it's like every audience is a little bit different, right? So you have to think of when you look at these things, each audience is going to be completely different, and to really think about their journey, where they're at, what they're doing, all of these other different aspects. So how to test. So sending to a test batch, you really want to focus no more than 40% of your list at the time. And then you can perform a 50-50 split test. So sending 1 to 20% of the list and another to 20% of the list. And the reason why is because you want to make sure that you have enough of a sample to work with. And so one of the interesting aspects, if you're still building your list, if you're still working on it and you're still building it up, and you only have like 200 or 300 people on that list, it can be difficult to look, oh, this is such a small sample size. So one way to think of it also is taking your highest engaged users and actually sending them, because they're so engaged, you'll get a lot of really great feedback, and being really open and honest and transparent with them. And then what you're really looking for is monitoring their opens and clicks. And on the right-hand side, this is a screenshot from the SendGrid platform and how we kind of do our A/B testing. There's mostly email subjects, and you can pick the number of versions. And then you can also select a winner, either by open rate, click rate, or even manual. And one of the interesting things too is the duration. So how long you actually want to run the testing, because if you think that, for example, if your users are mostly based in another country, or other kinds of things, you may want to lengthen that duration of how it collects that data and makes that determination. So here's a more in-depth screenshot of exactly what we were just talking about. Speaking, so that you guys can see it a little bit better, because I know it was a little bit small. And so choosing the subject line versus the email content, and then the number of versions, and then choosing each email subject, and then an actual test size. So again, I definitely just from the marketer's perspective, I definitely would not test more than 40%, those kinds of things of my list, because you basically, this is where if you get a negative result, now is the time to do it, because it's such a small percentage of your list, and you can still apply that to the remainder of your list. And then selecting a winner either by open rate, click rate, and then also you can choose your own. It just really depends. By and large, most A/B testing, at least from an industry best practice perspective, it'll either be open rate or click rate. So open rate if it's more of a branding campaign, and click rate if it's actually like a marketing and promotional campaign. And then also the duration, which we talked about. So the longer duration, the more data you'll have. So just something to really think about. If you are having like a flash sale and you have a specific deadline, you may only do 30 minutes because you want to know immediately, like, this is only good for the next, hour, and this was our response. But by and large, most A/B testing, the way that marketers view it from the industry perspective, is within the first 24 hours is when we usually gather our stats. But it can vary based on your business and based on your users and based on what you're trying to do. Again, things like flash sales, things like, activate this now, all of these other kinds of different testing. Those are things that you might think about shortening the duration. The biggest takeaway there is, the longer duration, the more time and the more data you have, and the more precise you can be later on. All right, so we're just going to go through a few global engagement benchmarks. So you guys, at the beginning of the presentation, I kind of promised you guys that we'd get down to some of the data. And it's mostly just by industry. So industry health and fitness, you'll see mobile device use increased from 72% to 74%. And then something like from travel and hospitality, you'll see it's 63 to 70%. In every single case across the board, as we go across each industry, 59% to 67%, this mobile device usage is only increasing. And then the open rates and monthly send rates, things like that. And even dating sites, 57% to 64%. So going back to that mobile responsive thing that we talked about earlier, when it comes to designing your email, mobile device usage is only increasing across the board, across every major industry, and it's something that you guys will really want to take a look at. You'll also see that, like, on dating sites, for example, the monthly send rates, and I'll send you guys this data as a follow-up as well, but the monthly send rate increased 15 to 25 messages per month, but the overall engagement decreased. So part of it is understanding your product, understanding your industry, and then understanding these are the kinds of benchmarks that, that we're seeing from an industry perspective and how you line up as a core business. So that's kind of, I've got a couple of others. The biggest thing is making sure your emails are responsive in design. Consider the frequency and how often you're sending them. If you're sending them a whole bunch of email and they're not opening it up, it could be the wrong time of day. It could be the wrong calls to action. And so don't be afraid to test and to get in there and really understand what's going on. And then, just in terms of, if you guys are looking for more information, sendgrid.com. We have a blog. We have tons of documentation. Just if you guys need anything at all, you can feel free to go to sendgrid.com accelerate. That's kind of our team to help get you set up with the actual product. Or if you have any questions, or at any time, if you have any questions or need anything from the startup perspective, we're here to help you out. Just let me know.
Daliana, thank you so much for this presentation. This was really a masterclass, and I'm really grateful for you to be a partner of Cerrado Valley, and I can only appreciate and thank you for your time and consideration. Sadly, we had only 5 to 8 viewers online, but I'll translate your class or part of it into a post. If you can send us your presentation so I can embed, you could post it on your LinkedIn SlideShare account, and then I can embed it on our blog. And that's it. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time and your knowledge that you shared today.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, honestly, this is, I mean, you know, you've done so much to help us out and support us, and you know, thank you so much for the time and opportunity. And if you guys have any questions or need anything at all, I'm here 100%. And if you know, and thank you so much. Like we really appreciate it, and this has been so great. So Diego, you're amazing.
No,
This is so wonderful. And so
you at SendGrid are amazing. You always treated me with so much respect and acknowledged me as a community. So I only have to appreciate. And guys, I have just a few, agora, now I'm going to speak in Portuguese, okay? Galera, então essa foi a Masterclass de hoje. Valeu para quem estava aí assistindo. Eu vou traduzir parte da apresentação dela e colocar no nosso blog, depois vocês podem acompanhar lá. Essa semana, vamos ter na próxima semana agora, mais um bate-papo com a Carla Arena, falando de curadoria digital, ensinando a usar algumas ferramentas do Google e também aproveitando o gancho com o SendGrid e os e-mails. E vamos ter uma Masterclass na semana que vem, beleza? Com um cara que adora Dragon Ball. Bye, bye. Bye, Dalena. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Tchau, amigos. Até.